Good afternoon, everybody. It's welcome to the SRPC Committee meeting. It's Thursday, February 23rd, and it's 3:48 in the afternoon, and we are all participating by Zoom remotely. We have our agenda for the day. We'll do the welcome and introductions. We've got one action item and one presentation, and then a round table. So to the introductions, I was going to try something different, but I don't see a big group today, so I guess I'm going to use if everybody's name is there. Mary, okay, good. I was going to say, I thought it was Megan. Okay, so starting out, Mark Richardson.
Yes.
Mike Babinski.
Here.
Mary Woodward.
Yes, here.
Bill Fisher.
Here I am.
Natalie, is it Gemma?
Yep.
Is it Gemma? I'm sorry, I want to make sure I get it right. Natalie, Gemma, okay. And this is where the names start switching around. Joe Boudreau.
Here.
Don Hammond.
Present and accounted for.
Charlene Anderson.
Here from Nottingham.
Peter Nelson.
Here.
Barbara Holstein.
Here.
Let's see, Wayne Burton. Wayne, you're on mute. Everybody take yourself off mute. Wayne?
I think I'm trying to. I think
did
somebody somebody wants me on mute. I'm here.
It's not us, Wayne. Rachel Dewey.
Hi.
I'm just getting everybody that's here. Megan, we know you're here. Herb?
Here.
Mark Davey?
Present.
Gottlieb? Karen Gottlieb?
Here.
And let's see if I've got everybody. Stephen Geis. Stephen? I know you're there, or you have somebody in for you. Let's see, is there anybody else? Sometimes these things feel, I guess I got everybody there.
Courtney Grinali is going to join in just a second.
Okay.
Staff member. Thank you.
So on to the action item. Action item is to approve the December, actually it says 12, but it's December 1st, 22nd minutes. It'll take a motion from somebody. You're going to have to yell out or wave.
Motion to approve the minutes, December 1st, 2022.
Don
I'll second.
and Mike Babinski seconds. I guess I have to do a roll call. Do they have to do that because we're remote, Jen?
You do? Would you like me to call roll for you?
I'll take a crack at it here,
All
and
right.
then you can correct anything I don't do right.
You're good.
All order there. Don,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Mary, well, go ahead.
Abstain.
You okay? I thought you'd say that. Bill,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Charlene,
I believe I can't vote.
really? Okay,
I'm not paying member.
okay. Now it's switched on me again. Joe, Mark, did I get you, Mark? I apologize.
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Mike, and Barbara,
Yes.
and Herb.
Yes.
I think that's well, wait a minute.
Wayne.
Wayne.
Yes.
Sorry, Wayne.
No problem.
Yes.
It was a different form.
Thank you, Karen.
Different form of muting. So that's.
We have an additional member who's joined us, but we need to change his name.
Okay, thanks.
Did-
Thank you very much.
John? John, do you know how to change your name, or would you like me to do it for you?
You go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
Jen, I just changed it, sorry.
Oh, I may have negated it.
Just say Newt. Newt is fine.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Good job.
And so John, you're here, right?
Yep, ready to go.
Okay, thank you. I see you now. You just popped up. Very good. So on to number 3. We're going to review the final regional housing needs assessment. I think this kicked off back in December, if I'm remembering, initially when we were doing this. And so Natalie, why don't you go right ahead?
Great, thank you so much. Just give me 1 second, please. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, as you said, the last time that we presented our project update to the commissioners was in December 2022. However, the project really started back at the end of 2021. So it's been a long year that we've been working on this. But I can finally say that it's been published officially. So today what we're going to be doing, since we've already done a couple of presentations with the commissioners before, we're just going to do a brief overview of some of the recent changes and additions since that December 2022 meeting that we had with you. So the current status of the regional housing assessment, the draft was released for public comment just last week on February 13th. The public comment period will close on March 14th, 2023. The draft is posted on our website, plus in Dover, Somersworth, and Rochester public libraries. Any comments that you have can be sent to srpc@stratford.org. The public hearing to review and solicit comments is going to be held on March 17th at 9 a.m. It's a hybrid meeting, and we will be sending out information for that meeting prior to it. Specifically related to the document, the current status of the regional housing needs assessment, we incorporated the commissioner's comments and shaped conclusions and recommendations based on what we heard at our December meeting from you. We added new policies and laws that were enacted since the last RHNA, which was updated in 2015. We expanded on current housing gaps and projected housing needs. We incorporated landlord survey results throughout the entirety of the document. We also expanded on local, regional, and state resources that are available to help support fair housing. We added persona profiles, which are featured throughout the document, which was an outcome of an exercise that was completed at the Housing Forum with workforce housing representatives and social service providers from around the state. And lastly, we also incorporated additional information from the New Hampshire Housing Toolbox, and we also finalized that toolbox. So the first ones are pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to focus on these last two ones, which you haven't really seen before. So the persona profiles, what these are, they're meant to portray actual ways in which the cost of housing and other expenses affect individuals and families. So in this example, I know it's a little bit small, so you might not be able to see it, but what it portrays is a family of 4 who falls in the gap of people who don't make enough money to find decent housing that accommodates their needs. However, they also don't meet the definition of income so that they can qualify for public assistance. So basically, this leaves them with no other choice than to seek trade-offs and prevents them from being able to save for housing, medical expenses, or other emergencies. So, in other words, what they can afford, they can only afford realistically a 1-bedroom apartment if they don't want to sacrifice some of these other expenses, such as utilities, transportation, childcare. Really, what these persona profiles are meant to be is just an eye opener for the reader, so you can understand what some of the real impacts on housing are. for the people in your community. Next, we have the housing toolbox. What this is to help achieve our region's housing projections. We created this housing toolbox. It's a supplementary standalone document that was created with the help of sub-consultant Outwood Studio, and also it was a collaboration between the 9 regional planning commissions around the state. This toolbox, like I said in our December meeting, is meant to provide municipalities with innovative zoning and planning strategies that are meant to help with housing production. So beyond just providing a detailed description of each tool, we also go into some details of how it can help, how each municipality can get started, things to keep in mind, so considerations, different case studies, relevant state laws, and others. Each regional planning commission is free to incorporate this toolbox in their RHNA as they wish. What we did at SRPC is we're going to have it as a standalone document, so you can click to the actual document from the RHNA, but we also incorporated some highlights that are for each tool directly in our document. So in the coming months, I'll go over these. So these are just a list of all of the tools that are listed in the toolbox. We came up with a total of 19 tools that are extensively covered in this resource. This is just, I took a screenshot of what the toolbox actually looks like. So as you can see, it just covers the different aspects of each tool, and there's a little bit of imagery to help explain the tools. The toolbox is now posted, so if you would like to view it or download it, we can share these 2 links with you. I should just mention that there is going to be a phase 2 where Outwood Studio is going to be creating a more interactive version of this tool that we can share with municipal stakeholders and other members of the community. And what this is going to be basically is just a website where it's going to be, like I said, interactive, and it's going to have all of these tools. So while this is a static document that I'm going to be sharing with you, it's a PDF. The other one will be shared. The interactive document, the interactive tool, is going to be shared in a couple of. And those are all of the updates that we've had in the past couple of months. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'll open it up for any comments or questions.
For everyone there here on the meeting, I have put the links to where you can find the draft regional housing needs assessment posted on our website. The project page also includes all of the prior presentations that staff have done, whether with you all or we participated in some other presentations across the state on progress and contents. There's also in the chat the link to the housing toolbox. One thing I will note is it's like the 99% draft. I think, Natalie, we met, was it last week, to go through the draft with the consultant, and there was one other item recommended, so there may be an additional tool being added to the toolbox. So there will still be some changes.
Yeah.
Natalie, it's Joe. Couple of questions. I understand, going out for public comment, et cetera, et cetera. I apologize. What happens to this? What happens then? It gets accepted. What happens then?
What happens with the document after it gets accepted?
Yes.
So we're going to be, once it gets accepted, we'll be sharing this with our municipalities. And like I said, what this is meant to be is really a tool for our community. So we're hoping to be able to get this in the hands of our planning boards, our board of selectmen, the different planners, other housing advocates and organizations that support housing. There's a lot of data too, and we also have the data snapshot. So anyone working in the world of housing can really rely on this to be able to what we're hoping to do is to help them make informed decisions.
I mean, it's a very complete document. I was very impressed. So congratulations to everybody that's participated in this. Any thoughts to actually making presentations to, for example, the planning boards or to the councils, etc., so that it doesn't just become a document, it actually engages people in discussions over and above input?
Yeah, I think we would definitely be open to doing presentations to planning boards. As of now, we have done several presentations. I'm not even sure how many, at least I feel like half a dozen to different organizations. Like for this morning, we had a presentation with the climate adaptation workshop. So we've done, like I said, different groups, different organizations, different community members have already seen presentations. But we don't want it to stay there. We don't want it to be just a document that lives on our website. So I think that we can definitely take this and go beyond, like you said, present it to planning boards, for example, right? That's a really important audience for us, and that's really who we want to be targeting. So yeah.
Natalie, question. First, I just thank everybody that was involved in it, because when I read the first draft of it, I was so impressed and shared with the planning board that it's going to be extremely helpful to us as a small town in updating our housing section of our master plan. So thank you all for doing that. I'm just curious, once you receive the public comment, how would that be incorporated into the document?
So we're going to be receiving public comments to that email. We've also received other public comments via different ways. And what we'll do at the end of the public comment period is we'll just be taking all of that and incorporating it directly into the document before we have that. So by March 17th, before we have the public hearing, those comments will be incorporated. And then at that point, if we receive anything else, we'll be sure to incorporate it before it's adopted.
Sorry, Natalie, I apologize. This is being done by all of the planning commissions.
Yes.
It goes to the state, it goes to feds. Where does it go?
So the state is actually doing their own their own housing needs assessment. So there's a statewide one, and then there's going to be 9 regional housing needs assessments. And the whole time we've been working with the state and with the other planning commissions. So the state is well aware of what we're doing, and they've been helping us out a lot throughout the process. And it's been a collaboration with the other regional planning commissions. So basically, we followed one outline, and we're all familiar. It's basically, so it's easy for us to compare the documents across regional planning commission lines.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, Natalie, yeah, I would just echo the point. I think it's a good body of work. And one of the we're curious about, and I'll need to spend some more time in the document, but the issue of infill development and parking and kind of how that is addressed or not addressed. I'm kind of curious about that. I think all of us, all communities that are dealing with infill development and trying to navigate changes in zoning that reduces on-street or reduces parking requirements for developers, but yet then that shifts some of the burden onto the public streetways and so forth. And kind of curious how you're navigating that, and if there's an element in the report that addresses those kind of things.
Yeah, so actually both of those things are things that are addressed throughout the report. They're going to be found in different areas of the report. So infill development is actually one of the tools in the toolbox. So that one we cover a little bit more extensively. I think for what you need, it's the perfect resource. That's exactly what we're trying to do with those resources, those tools. So definitely take a look at that. And then as far as parking requirements go, that's addressed under our opportunities and barriers section. So we don't go too much in depth with that, but it is we do lay it out in a way that we present it in a way that, but yes, parking is necessary, but it can also be a barrier if it's not done correctly. So yes, both of those are addressed.
Great. And will this document also be available to private developers? Is that a possibility or goal or something?
Yes, definitely. We can make that available to private developers. They were actually they were one of the
process, yeah.
stakeholders that were involved in the process, in the outreach process. So I think we do have contact with them. We do have their contact. So hopefully once it's adopted, they're one of the that we can disseminate the document to.
Great. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep. Mark?
Yeah, I remember doing the exercise of that family of 4 and trying to give them a budget. And one thing that stood out to me in the slide that you showed was that childcare, I believe, was the second highest. Rent was $1,400, and I think childcare was $700 out of that budget. And I think that was, aside from rent, it was the highest one there. I remember doing the exercise and talking about, well, are both kids in school? Or are they one in school, one in all-day childcare? Are they both in all-day childcare? What kind of a dynamic that was, because it was obviously going to impact what the childcare costs would be. But having been separated from having my kids in childcare for quite some time now, that's $700 is a lot of money for that family of 4. And it surprised me to see that amount of money in that budget that you put up on the screen. And honestly, I think it would surprise a lot of people. So that was kind of an eye opener for me just to see that. So, good work.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Mark. Actually, I think I'll probably make a note of that and see if we can add a little bit of an explanation of what the childcare costs are, because that's not an unrealistic number for childcare nowadays. I think I want to say that the full-time, for a full-time childcare, for a child to go to childcare full-time, I think the average in Hampshire is around $1,300 for one child. So definitely, it's really, really expensive. But I can understand that if someone doesn't have a child in childcare, then you see a number like that and you think, no, there's no way that can be that expensive. So in this example, it wouldn't even be a full-time. So the mother would be taking care of the child to some extent. So I think if we can make a note of that, it'll be good. It'll be a good explanation. So thanks for that.
I have a quick question, Natalie. Is the document such that you think that it'll be relatively easy to update over time, to bring data points maybe more current or whatever without a complete, reworking of everything? Is it laid out in that way to your mind?
So I think more than the document being able to be updated, we do have the separate document, which is the data piece. That one, I believe we do have plans to update it more often, so it won't go the full 5 years without being touched. Am I correct in that, Jen?
Yeah, I believe that is the plan, that it'll get rolled in with the overall data snapshot that we prepare annually.
Okay. And then I don't remember I don't remember if this was part of the budget or not, but is there anything in the budgets that allow for, I agree with all the things that are listed, and I too don't know about some of the numbers, but is there anything in there for, I'm just going to call it miscellaneous? I've tried budgets all the time, and I try to teaching my children who are now college age and beyond about budgets, but even serious budget people don't get it all right. And it always ends up being more because you think about how money gets spent. it's not just rent and childcare. I mean, if you want to have any kind of a life or living or whatever, you spend other money. So do those kinds of things include a miscellaneous? The slide went by me kind of quick. I didn't know, maybe it did. Or is it a factor or something?
There is something. It's very, very small. It is a $25 amount that was allocated.
I did miss that. Oh, I'm sorry. That sounds good.
Yeah, so it's like we put under that we said birthdays,
Yeah. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Well, that maybe there's a way, maybe there's some kind of generally accepted standards. And I know when kids go off to college, you have all the numbers, the room and the board, and this and that. And there's always this big number that's in there that I look at and I go, what the heck is that? Because it's always like 1,000 or 2,000 or, and it's for stuff. It's not books, It's not food, it's not housing, it's not, and so it might be even a worse situation, I think, is what I'm saying, than is even depicted, because of just reality. So.
Yeah. I think we had a couple hands up. I saw Barb's hand up and then Kyle's hand. So Barb, did you still have something?
I just wanted to say, if the data that you guys have accomplished, I don't know how you got it all, but you did. And this will also help if we say, gee, Senate Bill 237, for instance, happens to be about childcare. So now we have a reason to go and say, let's look at that bill. Is it important? Will it make a good difference or not? And we can fight for it. We can go to our senators or whatever and say, hey, this is what we feel, we need this. Do you see why? And we have the data to back it up. So between this and the housing bills that are out there, the information that's in this report that you guys have done will help us fight to get what we need, the monies we need to get the things accomplished that we need to get accomplished. So that's another point, which is very good for, for us to think about when we read that and say, oh, gee, we just found out so-and-so bill is out there. Should we do something about it, or should we just sit by and let it go by? So just another thing to think about.
Yeah, thanks, Barb. I think I saw Wayne's hand up. And
I guess to follow on that, I was in the big fight in my 4 terms in the legislature about the accessory unit bill. It was an interesting experience because you get some interesting political alliances between the more urban places that are trying to find ways to do more housing and other communities that aren't. And my question is, this, you say, goes to the state. We are not a local choice state. I think most of you know that. We can only do what's allowed by the state government. That's not true in the commonwealths of this country. It's only true in the states like ours. And I'm wondering if building on what the previous comment, that some model legislation might be in order. And you could start with the Stratford delegation, start with the Rockingham delegation, and use them, because this is really a bipartisan issue. And I know I was sued in Durham as a town councilman when we were accused of capriciously decreasing the density of the site on Mill Road Plaza. I had all my emails subpoenaed by the people involved. It would be helpful, I guess the point is that if the legislature takes this up and takes it seriously with model legislation, that would then enable the towns to do the kinds of things they might want to do.
Good point. Looks like Kyle's got a question.
More of just a comment to kind of close the loop on the daycare conversation. As someone that is, starting this process, or have been kind of looking at this, since August, I think the additional piece to the affordability of daycare is also the availability of daycare. Since August, my wife and I have been on 3 lists to get into daycare, and we haven't even solidified any of them yet. We thought we were starting incredibly early in August, and it's now, closing in on March, and we don't have any daycare till maybe the fall. And so I think whether that belongs as a big component of this plan or not, I think at least the caveat that while it is also a primary expense, and whether it's affordable or not, the accessibility of daycare is also a major challenge. So again, just thinking about maybe adding a note to that is like the accessibility and affordability go hand in hand with not only housing, but with daycare and other things as well.
Anybody else? Joe?
Yeah, Natalie, a couple of things. To Kyle's point, I think in the document, it does reference the fact that there is a shortage of, daycare and that sort of thing. And so I think it's been identified there. But Natalie, the bottom line, if I'm not mistaken, the bottom line says, we can do this. We can build these 9,200 units.
Mhm.
I know it's early days, but in the reviews that you've done with folks, any planning groups, et cetera, has anybody stood up and said, look, I don't think that's possible?
Up to this point, that has not come up, no. But I think if you do read the data and you see the numbers and everything, there is no reason for someone to think that you can't. So it's not just us trying to be positive and say, hey, we can do this. It's been done before, so there's no reason why it can't be done going forward.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Nice job. Fantastic. Thanks for all the effort for the group, and you did a great job presenting.
Thank you.
Okay.
Barb?
I just wanted to know, are we going to be tying in with the atlas that the state is doing, the housing atlas that they're in the process of doing? Will that, what if their information is different? Are we going to merge it or throw it in there, or has that been addressed?
So are you referring to the zoning atlas?
Yeah, the one that St. A's and everybody.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. So in fact, Jackson from our office, who does all of our GIS work, he was in coordination with the team that was preparing the zoning atlas, and has shared like the data layers that we have. So there should be some consistency there, and those are also the same, data layers that he used when he did his analysis of land availability in the region.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Is anybody else there? Have any more? Don't want to miss anybody here. There's a number of people, I don't have their pictures, so if you're raising your hand or something like that, you need to just speak out. Okay, Jen?
All right.
Thanks again, Natalie. Okay, part 4. Item 4, strategic plan, commission roundtable conversations. There was a brief conversation before we got started. There's four bullets underneath this particular item, and we're roughly going to try in 15-20 minutes on the first couple of bullets. Jen, can you put up the I guess everybody has the agenda in front of them, maybe, but can you put that up or not really? Or
I can, yeah. Or you know what might be easier?
Oh.
Well, I'll do that, but let me grab them and put them. I can put them in the chat box as well. Maybe. Let's see if I can grab them from the PDF. Okay. There. Put them in the chat, but yeah, I can put the agenda up as well if you
If
would
it's
like.
not needed, if it's not needed if everybody has it in front of them, don't worry about it, but I just wasn't sure.
There we go. That is totally fine.
Okay, so briefly, we're just going to take the first two bullets and we'll probably devote 15, 20 minutes to that. And then maybe 15 minutes for each of the second two bullets. And if we have, I think we'll have enough time without any trouble at all built in, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
If we have to take a little more time on the first couple of bullets, that's fine. Okay. Now, are you going to be referring to something on here, Jen? Or
I am, just a little bit.
okay, go ahead then.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So to start out the conversation, because we're going to have several more brainstorming type conversations here, and I'll be putting up what we call a Jamboard so that we can make it a little bit more interactive and make sure everybody has a chance to share their thoughts and comments. I wanted to start with some community agreements for the conversation, the community being those of us here in the virtual room participating in the conversation. So just asking everyone to remember to be present, open, and engaged. Respect differences of opinion. We want to make sure that we share the floor so that everyone has a chance to speak. Be open to another perspective. Be ready to actively listen. Expect and accept non-closure. So some of the thoughts and ideas that we might put up or share here in the conversation, they may be incomplete. They may seem a little raggedy, and that's okay. And we just want to make sure that we honor our start and stop times. I know some of you have other things to do this evening. And so we want to make sure that we have time to hear from everybody and get through the full conversation and still end promptly so that we respect everybody's time here today. So I'm going to stop sharing here for a second. And maybe I'll move my PowerPoint out of the way. So one of the things we're going to use to start this conversation and to help maximize what can be said while we have this conversation in this short period of time, we're going to use the Jamboard. And so I'm going to put a link in the chat box. And hopefully everyone will be able to access that link. So when I start seeing folks click on that, I will, I'll share my screen briefly. Oh, look at y'all go. All right. All right. Magic thing is, where's my thing to there we go. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly share my screen here. And I want to make sure that you guys can, see everyone because we can talk and put sticky notes on at the same time here. So a couple of the things we wanted to touch base with you all on, and we frequently have the Commissioner Roundtable at the end of the agenda and we run out of time. And we really want to make sure that we're hearing from you. What is happening in your community? What are some top priorities that you have going on? And as well as what are some new initiatives that you're undertaking. And so to do this, we've got the Jamboard here, and on the left there is this little sticky note icon, and if you click on that, you can type in your own idea. And you can choose what color your sticky note is. And then you just hit save, and your sticky note goes right onto the Jamboard, and you can hit cancel to close it. So anyone and everyone here, as we're chatting, can add some things onto our Jamboard. So with that, we'll give folks a few seconds to start thinking. I'm going to delete my examples.
Should we identify at all what town we're referring to, or does
that is a great idea? Yeah, Lisa, that would actually be helpful if you could just put your town when you're dotting things, and you know, if you want to just share it in the chat or share it here in the conversation or put a sticky note on, that's fine. And I'm happy to add things to the Jamboard as you're chatting and discussing. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you all can see each other if we have a conversation. Mark. So quiet. Let's see. Oh, go Dave with the link. So while you're all typing, why don't I'm going to attempt to go off the top of my head alphabetically by municipality and call on you all to share some of what is going on in your community, some of these kind of priorities and new initiatives and exciting things that are happening in your communities. So let's see. I don't see Barrington or Brookfield, so I think next then is Dover. We got Dave, Sophie.
Hi, this is Sophie Robeson. I'm one of the folks from Dover. Just, I guess, to share, I'm pretty new to being involved in government here. This is just my second or third SRPC meeting. So I don't know that I have a lot to kind of report out on, but excited to hear and kind of keep building my knowledge on this.
And we are excited that you've joined us. And Sophie, you have now, like, I think 2 out of 3 meetings have been snowstorms. And so
yeah,
stuck in Zoom land with us. So we are looking forward to actually meeting you in person one of these days.
Yes, absolutely.
Have you meet Dave, your counterpart here from Dover. Ooh,
Definitely.
something changed my background. That's exciting.
I look forward to meeting you, Sophie. This is Dave. Lindsay, I think
Lindsay,
Lindsay, I think you must have been the person that posted the Dover City Council goals. And I'm aware of what those goals are, and I could mention some of those, or you can do that, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I can jump in and share a couple. I I always think I know how to work Jamboard, but then I couldn't get it to work. So I was trying to paste the actual goals, but it wasn't working. So I just put the link in. But just briefly, I can summarize for folks. And this is sort of a layer of goals on top of the Dover master plan and strategic plan. And then this 2-year cycle of council goals, trying to synthesize all of those pieces and then layer in the council goals. So just briefly, goal 1 has to do with inclusivity and welcoming, which a lot of the pieces of that connect with planning and community engagement, some of those layers. Goal number 2 is around volunteer engagement. So again, thinking about all the different boards and commissions and making sure that that is all functioning well. Goal 3 has to do with our waterfront development. So folks may have seen in the news ongoing work to redevelop that area downtown. So certainly some interesting evolution there that Dave probably knows more about the latest than I do on that one. And then goal 4 is probably less directly relevant here. It's about collaboration around budget. But goal 5 has to do with engagement, community engagement. Goal 6 around resiliency. So a lot of really interesting. So we just had our resilience plan presented and approved by the council, and I'll find a link to that as well. And then goal 7 around continuing and definitely tied right into the conversation earlier on affordable, accessible housing, diversity of housing stock, opportunities there as well. But I'll add the resilience plan. I forgot that just was made public, so I'll put that in a note as well.
All right. Dave, you want to add anything else for Dover?
I had the list of the council's goals, and the only other thing, I'm not sure if you mentioned it, Lindsay, but there's also did you mention the energy efficiency?
No, I mentioned that. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah.
Energy efficiency. Dover has joined the New Hampshire Power Coalition, and that's a continuing growing force in the state. And we're also have some items unique to Dover, such as a development of the Toland Road landfill. It's a Superfund site, a brownfields type of site, maybe a solar array or some type of use. And our water treatment plant is something that's going to have some major work done. And so we're looking into different types of energy efficiency items there. And wherever else we can look into that. And then I think one of the other things, and it's not just Dover, but since Dover's the county seat and the Riverside Rest Home is on the county property, but everyone should care about what goes on there. There's a lot of effort afoot to build a new modern type of structure there and look into what the present Riverside Rest Home property and building might be used for. And then the only other thing I'll mention is that I don't have the full data, but I was told by the planning department that just in the year 2022, last year, there was approximately, there's just over 900 new units that were approved, and that's some small number of single family homes, a few condo type things, but also a lot of different apartments, some of which benefit people that are having a harder time to pay rents because they're based on the HUD rates, and so they're roughly about 20% lower than the typical market rate. So that's about it. But I just want to add that stuff in.
All right. How about we move over to Durham, Wayne? Wayne, you're on mute.
First and foremost, you should all be warned that the CLF has filed a petition to have all the towns pay for the cleanup of Great Bay. And that may fly. And you'll be looking at huge bills coming in when that happens, if you're affected by that. And that's one of the goals in the town, is to promote the long-term health of Great Bay. The intersection of Route 4 and Madbury Road, Durham has a 13 million project on Madbury Road. The state has a project to redo the intersection. We think they should help us pay for the piece of the project that they have at the end of Madbury Road. That's quite personal for me. I live right in the middle of this. The commercial core in Durham went under a legal process for 7 years. It ended up in a stalemate. We still do not have a plan for the reuse of the Mill Road Plaza. I'm getting these from the town's strategic plan, which I'm now part of because I'm back on the town council. I won't take any more time. I think my guess is that we have the same challenges in each of the towns, and then unique ones here and there. And I have great respect for what's going on in the other parts of the region, and anything Durham can do to help you out, I hope we do so. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Wayne. How about Bill in Farmington?
Well, we have several warrant articles this year coming up for vote, which will be next month. Excuse me. And we're trying to make it easier for people to use their own property. We've had several applications where people have wanted to build multiple homes on their property. Instead of an ADU, put in a second home on their property. And technically they can't do that because there's only one primary use per lot. So we're trying to change that to where you could possibly have multiple homes on a lot, allow for more duplexes or even triplexes on a person's lot, trying to make it easier for them to do that. We've also partnershiped with, help me get this right, Kyle, but I think it's New Durham. We have a person now that is working on housing situations on a 50-50 time shot. We got a grant to do that. So we'll be getting more of our paperwork in a row and make it easier for people to effectively use their lots to create more housing, because land's not growing. Farmington's not getting bigger, but we're getting more people and less places to put homes. So we'll see what happens.
Thank you, Bill. Let's see. Do we have anyone from, yes, sorry, Mary from Lee. And this is Mary's first, well, Mary, you were at the policy meeting, kind of observing, and you are here tonight or this afternoon officially as a commissioner from the town of Lee. So having you jump right into the fire here, but love to hear.
Well, I am jumping right in. I just found out yesterday that I was coming to this meeting today. So, but I would say that we share many of the issues that have already been mentioned, and especially related to priorities for a small town and what to spend money on first, second, third. And our trustee of the trust has developed a new planning tool to help prioritize. And as those issues become especially problematic in these days, of course, when we're all reading the news of the wilder weather and the pressure on buildings, that 100-year events are now going to be 20-year events, and that all kinds of migration might happen. How do you plan for people who might not only wanting to come to work from local areas, but how do you plan for all the people who are going to be displaced as this climate havoc continues? I think I read that last year 100 million people were displaced by climate incidents, and in the US it was 3 million people. And of course, that's only going to get worse. So resiliency is very important. We're doing a lot of energy projects. We're also looking into community power. We also have the issue of being a very small town and how to be a competitive employer when, of course, the bigger towns can offer more. How do we keep our employees? I would say those are the main things. In a way, I view it as kind of in a more global perspective, balancing the past. There are a lot of people who value history, have worked hard to preserve all the buildings and the way the place is. But then, of course, there's the future, and it's that balance between the past and the future that's creating tension.
That's a really great way to kind of encapsulate it all there at the end, valuing history and balancing it with planning for needs for the future.
I'd like to thank the town of Lee for hosting the, excuse me, solar array that actually powers all of the public buildings in Durham. That was a regional thing. We negotiated with the town of Lee for that site that we owned before. And this is not, these big issues, all of which we're hearing about, we should work on as a group, not just as individual towns. And I know you probably all agree with me, but we need to, in New England especially, which demised out of small farms, we don't do things regionally, but all of these issues affect all of us.
Yes, and just to add to that, I was especially concerned last week. I don't know if anyone listened to the presentation by the Union of Concerned Scientists, but New Hampshire is really a laggard when it comes to action on a climate plan. So one thing I hope to understand as part of this group is the county moving ahead anyway, even though there's not much happening at the state level? There was a very interesting chart that ranked New Hampshire on a number of issues. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but I'm looking forward to learning more about that.
Thank you. So let's hop to Milton. We've got John and Karen here from Milton.
Yeah, I'll just add my 2 cents, and then John can certainly feel free to add to it. Milton's a little bit different than a lot of towns here in that we're an extremely small community. We don't have much infrastructure whatsoever. We don't have much business. So there's a lot of struggles with that. There's a lot of struggles with trying to attract businesses that will fit into the landscape, I guess, of Milton, because I think somebody else alluded to it. We have a lot of folks in town who just want to keep Milton the way it is, a very small little town. However, we all know, costs are increasing, and so it's a constant battle to figure out how to get more resources coming in order to support some of the increased expenses, even for a small town. So.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
This is John Newt speaking to follow up what Karen was talking about. So yeah, the planning board has recommended establishing a business enterprise zone in the south end of town. So as you come in Route 16 from Rochester coming into Milton on the old Route 16, instead of having that zone basically for single family residential, make it more conducive to businesses to get established there, but also allow them to have apartments upstairs or apartments behind, that sort of thing, and get away from the storage building sort of megalopolis thing, but have unique businesses as you enter in the south end of town. That would help quite a bit. We had a deliberative session 2 weeks ago at the town for both the town budget and the school budget. That went from 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night. And I don't think I'm ever going to do that again. Sitting in those cafeteria chairs for that long. Unfortunately, there's a strong conservative faction in town that dominated the conversation. And it was just kind of a sad, it was not a rewarding experience for me. I was very disappointed by a few people dominating this conversation. Now, one other thing before I go, going back to Farmington, that gentleman's talk, we are proposing a regulation of motorhomes and travel trailers being sited temporarily next to people's houses. We have no regulation at all right now, and we're asking for a 21-day limit of occupancy before the building inspector visits these people and suggests what they're doing with their sewage, how the water, that sort of thing. But even that was soundly drubbed during the meeting, so because people want to do what they want to do on their own property. But hopefully that'll fly. I mean, that didn't seem excessive to me. The joke was that I was proposing a 14-day limit because my wife has friends that visit every year, and I want to get them out of here in an appropriate amount of time. And we all went to 30 days, a whole month limit. So the 21 days was a compromise for us that we on the planning board thought was reasonable, but we'll see at town voting day, see what happens.
All right. Thanks, John. All right, I want to make sure we get all of our communities here. So I'm going to try and cruise a little bit here. Newmarket, Lisa and Peter.
Well, it looks like Peter had to go. Darn,
Oh, no.
I was really hoping to defer to him. The only thing I could do is cheat and look at, existing Newmarket documents. I can't speak off the cuff. I'm not a member of the planning board, so I'm sort of observing as a citizen. But I'll say I'm excited about the SRPC work on age-friendly communities that's getting started for Newmarket, and we had a great first meeting to start talking that through with RHNA and the town planner, and others are going to be invited to that group. So that's something personally that I'm looking forward to. And if just sort of a pulse on communities means anything, I volunteer for at the Newmarket Food Pantry, and just really interesting to see that over the course of it's slowed down a little bit, but at the end of last year, the prior 3 months, the number of folks accessing the pantry doubled. So there remains economic challenges that are longstanding, I think, for a lot of folks in all of our communities. So if you're not aware of those types of social safety nets in your own community, I bet it's a challenge.
Lisa, it doubled in what period of time?
It was really like over just a few months. So yeah, so like the fall.
Oh.
Okay, going down my list alphabetically. Newmarket, Northwood is not here. Nottingham, Charlene.
So a lot of kind of some similar themes in here, but definitely some of the top priorities are, Nottingham's a small town. We are being inundated with an influx of people and construction. Our caseload has been tremendous over the last few years, which is not allowing us to do planning. So any help we can get in that, which we have been utilizing Stratford as much as we can. And then kind of alongside with that, as we kind of see this increase of people, we're also seeing increase of traffic along Route 4, which cuts through and is really heavy. So ways to create more safe travel along Route 4 is something else that we're trying to focus on. Water resource planning, I think, is something that we really want to get some assistance in, and is a top priority, both quality and quantity of water, as we continue to see. We are all on private wells in Nottingham. And then I think the fourth thing would be, as I've heard from some other towns, is anything that supports kind of the planning work to help defer the cost, whether that be grants. And I know that we talked about this in a policy meeting, but a list of grants or resources, a little bit more ability to plan for these that might be coming down the pipeline. So those are the top four that we've kind of identified as a planning board.
Great. Thank you, Charlene. Let's hop over to Rochester. We've got a few folks here from Rochester. Barb, Joe, Don.
I guess I'll start. Obviously, Route 11 upgrades is a big thing for us. That's on the 5-year plan, and that's a really big project, very important to the TIP district and to just the traffic flow. Downtown redevelopment and revitalization is ongoing. There's the new 6-story building going up right in the center of town, which is going to be fantastic. If you drive by there now, you can really see the steel going up, which is really nice because that's a building that's been empty for 20 plus years. So that's kind of neat. The TIF district, we just changed the TIF agreement to allow them to also put housing up there on the backside of the commercial areas, which should help hopefully some of the housing crunch. And I know that the developer there is very interested in that. We are proud to have the first community outreach coordinator working through the welfare department and the police department. She gave a report to the council last night, actually, and she's been on since August. Took a couple of months of specialized training as well. She is an experienced therapist and whatever, but she has, with the statistics she gave us last night in a very short time that she's been on, she's helped a lot of families to crisis intervention where police keeps getting called to the same places for the same things, and it's really a healthcare or a drug, or the police calls have dropped quite dramatically, and in some cases 17 a week to 0. And so she's helping the homeless, getting people in the rehab for whatever reasons, helping with housing and all these other things. And it's the first position of its kind in the state, from what I've been told. So we're pretty proud of that. What else do we have? I found out last night that the Rochester Daycare Center has just been approved through the governor's and the executive council for a fairly large amount of money to help expand. And I don't remember the names of the senator or representatives that helped, but through the executive council and the governor, we get some funds to upgrade and hopefully expand the Rochester Daycare Center. And one of the things that we want to do in the city is that we're looking at is having a city sponsored daycare center to help with daycare. So I don't know if Barbara or Joe have anything to add.
Yeah, I just want to hit you on what you were talking about, Don, in terms of the revitalization of downtown. It really has two perspectives. One is to obviously increase the number of people who want to come and live here in Rochester. And the second one is to attract business. And so, Don, you referenced what's happening out on the ridge, out on 11, where we're going to have business and apartments and homes together there. That's a very positive thing that we're doing. And then the other one, it's kind of interesting, it just happened to be current, is the tension between this idea of housing and business. And Don, I referenced the old DPW location where, there's discussion and it's a good tension. It's, do we do business there and attract business, or we do housing? So I think those two things, i.e. the revitalization, supporting both of those, as well as an example there of, how do we approach this being a topic within council, is very positive.
Barb?
We are working on water pollution, flood reduction. We have a work group going now on stormwater, so on and so forth. We're not afraid of the CLF. We're just doing it because we know it has to be done. And since nitrogen's the new buzzword this year, everybody's working on it. But we've got a work group going. It's been going since last spring. And it's a matter of stormwater. Should we have the utility? How is it going to be paid for, et cetera? So we're working on that. And also Rochester has started a mental health group for, it's going to be it is a coalition of all different nonprofits around. They're sending their reps, and we're trying to figure out how to address the mental health problem that we've got. It's mental health and substance misuse. So, and the new lady that's working on, that's being hired by the city, she's on the group. She's one of the members of the group. So we're working on that too. It's similar to the Dover mental health group. We're taking it from them and doing the same thing because Somersworth's doing it. So with Dover, Rochester, and Somersworth, since the people seem to move back and forth, the homeless and those that are having mental health problems, or they have a different ability and they're causing a little strife. So we're hoping that with the three cities working together again, things will be a lot better, I think. So that's that. That's about it for what I'm aware of in Rochester.
All right.
Thanks, Barb.
Thank you. All right. Keeping track of time, I want to make sure we have time for our last two questions, but this part, I think this part of the conversation is probably the most valuable. So I'm trying to give us a little bit of extra time here so we can make sure we hear from all of the towns that are here tonight. So next up, we have Rollinsford. Herb.
Oh, I have nothing to report, and I'm not just saying that to move things along. So
Okay.
as you guys have shared in the past, we have no paid professional planning entity in our town. And my mission has been to try to raise attention to that to the select board. But we continue to basically just react to things that come our way, and maybe that'll change someday. And that's what I'm working on. So thanks.
All right. And Mike Somersworth. You're on mute, Mike.
I'll be brief also. Couple of quick things in terms of initiative. We are, after about 5-6 years, we're finally starting our CMAQ and TAP grant projects. These are all transportation improvements in our city. We started out about 5 years ago. The CMAQ project, congestion mitigation air quality, deals with 6 traffic signal upgrades on the High Street corridor. There'll be brand new equipment, electronics, synchronized, be able to timing sequence much better. The equipment we're getting will allow us to have a remote programming access as well. There'll be some ADA ramp improvements as well. The TAP grant is a multiple pedestrian improvement project dealing with sidewalks on a major part of High Street toward the downtown. It also includes some upgraded crosswalk features and then a pathway between 2 schools. So it's really pretty innovative and a big help, I would say, in our pedestrian safety element. Also a long time in waiting to come to this day. We literally this past week held our pre-construction meeting for both projects. We're dealing with redevelopment of 4 public properties, 3 of which are in the downtown. And the 4th one is the former National Guard facility. So we're working through various evaluations and planning with our city council and eventually our planning board with regard to the reuse. It's important to note that at least 3 of those projects had brownfields redevelopment money or improvements money that came through our assistance in working with SRPC. So I want to shout out to the staff in helping us use those funds and at least getting those sites cleaned up so that we can begin thinking about a reuse factor. I would say also the other thing that we're dealing with is some major redevelopment and development, I should say, on Route 108. I think that's continuing with what we're seeing in the region. I think the improvements in the future complete streets for Route 108 cannot happen soon enough. There's just a lot of interest and development we're seeing on Route 108. And so we're working with private development that's already occurring out there, and we know there's more ahead. There's also several public works projects that we'll be working on in the near future. We're also working on a development of a solar array. I think you've heard me talk about that at our Blackwater Road Superfund site. It's a few years probably ahead before we can finalize a lease agreement with the developer, but things are in motion to make that happen. And my last thing I would just say, and I have probably an offline conversation, maybe even with Wayne Burton in Durham, but with regard to his comment about the CLF and the Great Bay cleanup, as a city, we share the goals of the cleanup effort and the nitrogen reduction. We signed on to that. Somersworth, like I think Durham as well, we chose not to participate in the kind of the consortium or the MAM group it's called, but we're very close to it and we stay up on what's happening. We've chosen to have a direct relationship with PREP, excuse me, and we're dealing with their science and helping their science effort with regard to the results of the Great Bay. We'll be very concerned and challenged, I would say, if CLF forces that issue, because I think most of our communities are trying to do the right thing. And whether they're part of the MAM group or part of a direct relationship with PREP, I think we're making progress. So that's a little top down. That's a feature of the Clean Water Act and forcing EPA to bring us all together. And anyway, I just there may be something in there for SRPC in the future, but it is something that we're tracking as well.
All right, Mike, that is a really great segue to the next question. And it looks like some folks may have already hopped over to the next slide on the Jamboard. So just as kind of a big picture overview for our new folks here, SRPC, we organize our services into kind of three major planning areas. We've got our transportation programs, our economic development programs, and then our land use programs, which are really everything else. It's the traditional land use planning, it's housing, it's environment, working with our municipalities. And within those sectors, we do a lot of the same types of services. So we work with municipalities on grant writing. We work on writing plans, customized mapping, building online mapping features. The list goes on and on of what we can and do in the planning realm. And so I guess the question that I have for you all is, we kind of talked about all of these different things that you are working on in your communities. How can SRPC be of support and assistance to you and your communities in these initiatives? And so there is a page 2 of the Jamboard. I don't know. I switched to page 2. Lindsay and Natalie, you guys are far more skilled at using Jamboards than I am. This is my first time giving it a go. I switched to slide 2. I don't know if it goes automatically for everyone, or does everyone need to click to slide 2?
I think my experience, everyone has to, at that little at the top, everyone's got to click over on their own.
So I'm going to share my screen real quick. So you all were here. And if you hit up at the top, the right arrow that says next frame, it'll take us to the resources or services that SRPC can or should provide. And feel free to, maybe what we'll do here is, rather than call on everyone, raise your hand if you want to share something or add it to the Jamboard itself. and we'll go from there. So Mike, I heard you mentioning something about some coordination along the lines of the Great Bay.
Yeah, I think that there is quite a lot of work that's underway already, and
yes,
the region efforts, I would argue, through the Seacoast, the Stormwater Coalition, has been superior, and actually a little bit of a textbook example of how communities can collaborate and be successful. I think the state agencies and even the EPA, looking afar from that, would complement that, and that's just cities coming together. There may be a point, and Wayne's point makes some sense. At some point, does SRPC have to or can get involved or should be involved in kind of looking at regional implications of stormwater, water pollution, maybe even water utility kinds of issues. So no framework there really, but maybe a platform at some point. So I just would put that in there. I also would argue for this agency to continue your resources to serve as technical advisor, often as a third party. In fact, I think we're going to bring you in. We're going to invite you in, as a matter of fact, very specific item, but to help us with a wayfinding signage package. What do you think about this? And maybe we'll bring you and or Colin in for advice on that with Michelle and staff on some wayfinding issues that we're dealing with. So that's
is that just in Somersworth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that it didn't mention is we have Shayna who does graphic design services. So that's another piece that could tie in on the wayfinding.
That's a very good point. That's a very good point. Yeah. I think it's a reminder, Jen, of, we do tend to have blinders on with your roles and the roles of planning, and but you have evolved into mapping and data, the work of the housing project and the housing report and other kinds of projects. You're Shayna, exactly, from a graphics, marketing, communication tool. That's a good resource for cities and communities to have, both small and large.
Yeah, and you have the majority of our data team here on the call. You get Rachel, Stephen, and Mark, who do a tremendous amount of work on the data analysis side. Any other things that folks would like to throw out there for kind of technical assistance or support or services that we could be providing?
Hi. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, I put this in the chat. I'm just on my cell phone, so having trouble accessing the Jamboard. No, that's okay. It sounds like there's a lot of need for sort of like regional collaboration. And then also it sounds like a lot of the municipalities are bringing on community engagement staff. And I wonder if that's an opportunity at a county level to sort of have some collaboration or kind of economy of scale and bringing in staff that can be available to maybe multiple communities. Or maybe digital infrastructure that can be available to multiple communities, that sort of thing.
Okay. Any other thoughts and ideas folks want to throw out there? So we actually have our first attempt at shared staffing. So Courtney Grinali, who's on the call here, she's a shared staff person between Farmington and New Durham that Bill alluded to, working as a housing navigator. So we're acting as the fiscal agent and hosting Courtney as a SRPC employee, but she really works for Farmington and New Durham. Whole new arena.
Jen, this is Dave. Maybe there's an opportunity out in the future for some more brownfields collaboration. Work because of Dover's got their. I think we could probably have more than one brownfield property subject. And Mike mentioned I forgot what site it was, Mike, but in some
Bretton's Cleaners, The actual National Guard facility, we also use brownfields for phase one, and the police station, the former police station. Yeah, all three.
There's probably some that are larger, some that are smaller, and I suspect if you pull in the rest of the cities and towns in our region, there's probably a few more as well.
Yeah.
I could.
Yeah, Dave,
involved-
on the brownfields program, we have our fingers crossed. We should hopefully be hearing in the next month or so about the brownfields application we submitted back in November. It does take a while. They're kind of a hefty application that we do, and they are highly competitive. So fingers crossed, we will once again have a funded brownfields program come. It would officially start on October 1st, but we are able to request for pre-award funds so we can do a little bit of preliminary work. So
when I was doing brownfields in Massachusetts, I was able to get an amendment to state law that allowed nonprofits to take over a brownfield site without incurring the long-term liability. Do you have that benefit in New Hampshire?
that is a very good question, Wayne, and I would have to look into the details of the program.
The other thing I would mention, I was a founding member of the park Essex National Heritage Area in Massachusetts. If you go down Route 95, you see the brown signs. That was a great way to bring the region together. That was the first National Heritage Area that partners the Park Service with the local region to organize historic sites in a way that brings longer-term tourists into the area. And it worked really well. I had the mayor of Portsmouth meet with them, but they wanted no part of doing a Boston to Portland, Maine, Essex National Heritage Area there. But it's something that this region could benefit from, I believe, because all of the small towns have something in them that are of great historical interest. And it's a good way to build an economy. The last thing I would say is I was deeply involved in building business incubators in Massachusetts with old industrial sites, and it works really well if done well with the small business development centers and so forth. And it's a way to bring small businesses in once you've got the big businesses in, and New Hampshire, as usual, is proudly behind everyone else in taking advantage of concepts because the state has no resources, of course, to put into this sort of thing. But they're concepts and ideas that I think might be of use as we cope with the challenges of the day. The only other thing that hasn't been mentioned yet is sea level rise. I was on a commission in the legislature looking at how historic sites now along the coast are suffering severely as the basements fill up around Portsmouth. And that is still a great threat to this region that should be on the agenda of the SRPC.
All right. Thank you, Wayne. All right. Anything else that folks want to add here before we move on to the final slide?
Well, about how we can get the state to support more public transportation funding.
Oh.
Yes, and on that note, I would like to add just a general interest in the topic of multimodal transportation. I mean, as we look at Copenhagen, which clears bike lanes before it clears car roads, or Japan, where they're building bikeways between the dividers of highways covered by solar panels, or Wales, which has just said it's not going to have any more new roads. It just seems with the variants like electric bikes and the smaller vehicles, a lot of thinking is going to have to go into that.
That's fantastic, Mary. We actually have a couple of our staff members. Mark is working with Shayna and Colin on preparing an active transportation plan. That's something we are actively working on right now. So if you would like more information, we would be happy to send that along to you.
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay. We got a few other things that have been shared on screen. Just kind of mention a couple of them. A step-by-step guide to set up and accommodate more remote attendance at planning board meetings. Saw more public participation when we were remote. See highlight bills that would be that would benefit local communities. Actually, I don't know if you've all seen the New Hampshire Municipal Association's new legislative tracking system. It is slick. You can sign up for different topics of bills, and you can either get a daily or a weekly email update on what is happening in legislature, and it will give you everything that is of interest to municipalities. That's a handy dandy new tool that is out there, and we're happy to send that along to folks afterwards, or maybe I can find it and put it in the chat. Okay, so we're all going to click the next frame and we're going to go to the last item. Ooh, we've already got folks that have been here. This is great. So part of what's in our strategic plan, and I'm just going to, just for those of you that want to take another look at it, the link was included in your commission packet. You know, a few years back when we prepared the strategic plan, one of the sections was focused on building and strengthening commissioner engagement and support systems. And we had a few different thematic items in there that wanted to really make a focus for this year. So one is redesigning the new commissioner orientation, having different trainings available for commissioners, opportunities for peer learning, strengthening your role as community conduits, improvements to our communications with you and through you to your communities, and perhaps how we structure and schedule our meetings. And so this is your opportunity to share with us how we could do a better job of supporting you and your role as a commissioner. So the same thing, feel free to raise your hand or add something to the board. And is it easier for you if I stop sharing my screen? Does it matter? What's your preference?
No, it's good. It's good.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So I'll start with one thing. I know I've chatted with Dave and Joe and the others from the executive committee a little bit about orientation. And one of the things we were talking about doing is maybe a twice yearly Commissioner 101 session, where we would find a time either like late afternoon or evening or something, and have it open to all commissioners, where we would walk through and take it in a like more digestible format to talk about what the commission is, what we do, what your role is as a commissioner, have time for some conversation, get to know other commissioners. Another thought we had was to do a potential like pair new commissioners up with more experienced commissioners and have maybe a buddy system, other ways of doing things. And I know we've had a couple new commissioners that have joined us when we have been very virtual, Sophie and Mary, and several of you actually joined on in the middle of the pandemic. And so it has not been the best in terms of providing that orientation or getting to know your fellow commissioners. Thoughts? So we got a couple of things that have gone onto the JAM board. Recommend including a job description for commissioners and an expectation statement. Continue providing orientation for new commissioners, open to changes how this is done. We have a new commissioner now. Yes, need to schedule soon. Any other thoughts? Communications, a monthly snapshot of what's happening that commissioners can share. Don't reinvent. It could be bits of e-news, meeting highlights, quick and simple. I like that idea. Does everyone get our weekly newsletters? Yes. No. Okay. If you don't, we'll have to make sure we get you added to our list. Let's see if I can. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can search for that link, and I'll put it in the chat. Any other thoughts or suggestions for engagement, Joe?
Jen, what do you think about when you have a community conduit? What are you thinking about there?
What do I think there? I think, Lisa, I think you, Peter, and I had a really great meeting when we sat down with the town administrator and the town planner in Newmarket and had the opportunity to kind of sit down and start a conversation with kind of all of us there at the table. I think it's like that follow-up. It's you know, you are like that vital voice of your community that comes to the planning commission. You know, and so knowing what is happening in your community, what the priorities are, kind of going through what we just did today is important to shape the services that we're offering. Because if we're not putting forward services that are of benefit to your community, we're not fulfilling our mission.
Because one of my thoughts here is what you just described, but I'm thinking of it as well in terms of how do we engage the community, meaning the residents versus the planning boards, etc. And so I know, Dave, and you and I have had a brief discussion about the fact that, you know, maybe we should be having commissioners who are available and who are willing to go to some of these groups, like whether it's the Rotary Club or other clubs, and just have them understand what it is we're doing from a SPRC point of view, SRPC point of view, and enlisting them so that at some point, you know, when we're looking for people to participate, whether it's in a survey or coming to meetings, etc., a whole bunch of other folks would have an understanding of exactly what it is we do.
Thank you, Joe. Other?
I've probably been on this the longest of anyone on the screen. In fact, we didn't have screens when I started. We had police guards because the dozen of us that met were the object of the Free Staters. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because there's a lot of excitement now about what the SRPC is. And I take it on myself to make sure I report to the town, because you're in a position, you're doing individual things for each town. You're saving the taxpayers money. There are services being provided by the Regional Planning Commission that the towns would have to shoulder if you weren't here. That's really important to get across. And so those technical services are making a political success out of the SRPC. But then again, you've got the regional stuff that affects all of us, that we have to address as a group and share information, whether you're in Durham or New Durham or Old Durham. It's all of those things. But Jen, you have brought a new energy to this organization that I have seen over the years. And someday you'll figure out how many years I've actually been on the council. But whatever you're doing, you keep going, because your staff and you are doing a great job right now.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm going to use you as another example of being a conduit. I know when we've gone through the various 10-year plan rounds, Wayne has, or even like the competitive transportation alternatives grant rounds and whatnot. Wayne, you've made sure that those conversations were on the town council agenda and talked about those projects and made sure that you knew as much as you could about those projects. So when you were here at the table voting on them, you were prepared, but also you brought that back to your community and shared it on the agenda and had that conversation there, and were able to kind of have that back and forth between the town council and the planning commission. So
well, I made them vote on a resolution and support.
I know.
I mean, that's a good way to bring them in.
I know.
And point out that that's how you link these levels of government together.
Lindsay.
Yeah, this is a great discussion. I just wanted to elaborate. I added something under community conduits, but I don't know if that's the right bin. So I figured I could just elaborate a little bit on it. And I think part of this is it maybe varies in different communities. But one of the things, I oftentimes forward things to city staff, but then I also realized that they already knew about those things. So it's just this idea of maybe sort of quarterly conversations with the commissioners from each community, and maybe quarterly is too much, but commissioners from each community, SRPC staff, a couple of reps from the city staff. And I know like some conversation like that might help us as commissioners connect with each other, but also the broader community. But I also know I've really appreciated the times when you've come in to do updates to city council as well, because I give regular updates at the meetings, but I only bring my lens. So when folks have a chance to hear directly from you all, that's always helpful of sort of connecting those dots between what SRPC is and can provide the community.
Okay. Great, thanks, Lindsay. Okay, just want to recognize the time. It is 5:29. Going to take a moment for any last additions or comments that you want to share.
Jen, just a quick one on training. And maybe people aren't commenting on it because I'm not quite sure what we're getting at. Is it trainings for how, like the role of a commissioner and Robert's rules, those kinds of trainings, or is it
Anything
about, regional planning and DOT things, or what did you mean?
It could be anything.
It's probably more for future discussion, but okay, thanks.
Okay.
Jen, this is John Newt speaking. I just want to thank you for going for a visual meeting today. I know we could have probably had the meeting in person, but for us older members, I really appreciate your fortitude in making that decision.
Yeah, well, you can thank your chair, Dave, who made the call. He and Megan chatted yesterday. After Megan and I looked at each other and said, I don't know, what do we do? Because we really hate to put folks out there on the roads if they're icy. We do double as that metropolitan planning organization, and we do have that driving towards zero goal of zero fatalities. Beyond zero fatalities, the last thing we want to do is have Rachel map your accident as you're coming to the planning commission for a meeting, because Rachel does map all of the accidents. So we don't want Rachel to map you. So we take safety seriously. So, yeah. All right.
All right, I guess we're going to need a motion to adjourn.
Yes, please.
Somebody.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Don.
All right, we'll just do this easy. Everybody in favor, say aye.
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 Any nays? No. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Great conversation.
See you
Thank
later.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.